Have you ever had one of those desires that just felt completely, utterly impossible? Like really out of reach?
Oh, absolutely. That feeling where it seems like you're chasing smoke. We've all been there.
Right. Big career change, maybe a relationship, or even something practical like planning a trip when everything seems stacked against you.
Yeah, that invisible barrier feeling, it can be really frustrating.
Exactly. Today, we're doing a deep dive into the ideas of someone pretty remarkable. Someone who argued those impossible things are, well, much more possible than we think.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
We're talking about Neville Goddard. He was a really influential spiritual teacher in the 20th century, had a very radical view on reality. And there's this one story about him that really gets his point across.
The Barbados story.
That's the one. So picture it. It's wartime, early 40s. Neville's in New York, desperate to get back to Barbados for Christmas with his family.
And travel back then was incredibly difficult, wasn't it?
A nightmare. Ships were booked solid, like 6 months out. He calls the steamship company. They basically tell him, sorry, not a chance. Even his own brother was like, why didn't you sort this sooner? Everything on the outside screamed no.
So all the physical evidence, all the logic pointed to impossibility.
Totally. But Neville, he didn't fight that external reality. He didn't panic. Instead, he went back to his hotel room.
Okay.
Relaxed completely. Got into that state he called akin to sleep. Drowsy, but aware. And in that state, he didn't just wish he was on the ship.
He imagined it.
Vividly. He created this short mental movie. Feeling the gangplank under his feet, smelling the salt air, even watching Barbados fade into the distance from the ship's deck. He looped it, felt it, made it absolutely real in his mind until he fell asleep in that scene.
That's a key point, isn't it? The complete shift from the external problem to the internal creative act.
Exactly. And the craziest part, the very next morning, the phone rings. It's the steamship company.
No way.
Yes. An unexpected cancellation. A spot opened up. He got his passage, went to Barbados, just like he'd imagined.
Wow. That really does challenge conventional thinking. It wasn't just luck in his view then.
Not at all. For Neville, this was proof of a principle, an inner power at work. He saw it as demonstrating a fundamental law.
And this Neville Goddard, he built a whole philosophy around this.
He did. Lived 1905 to 1972. Hugely influential mystic, spiritual teacher. And his core message, the absolute foundation, was simple but revolutionary. Imagination creates reality.
Imagination creates reality. That's a bold statement.
It really is. It flips everything we think we know about cause and effect. He put it plainly. Imagining creates reality.
He really doubled down on that.
He even said, when man solves the mystery of imagining, he will have discovered the secret of causation, and that is, imagining creates reality.
Okay, so our mission today then is to unpack that, to explore this core idea and the practical ways Neville taught to actually use this imaginative power.
You got it. We're going to dig into the foundational truths he laid out, the non-negotiables, and then get practical with his key techniques. The goal is to help you, listening right now, unlock that creator within and get faster, more consistent results.
All right, let's start with that foundation. It sounds like grasping these core ideas is essential before the techniques really make sense or work effectively.
Absolutely critical. These principles are the bedrock. They're why the techniques work and why they can work quickly when you really get them.
Okay, first up, consciousness is your only reality. It sounds intense. Most of us feel like the outside world is pretty solid, pretty real.
It's radical for sure, but also incredibly empowering when you grasp it. Neville basically said, the world out there, it's all just your own consciousness pushed out, objectified, your inner state made visible.
So everything we see and experience is a reflection of what's going on inside us.
Pretty much. He said consciousness is the cause as well as the substance of the entire world. So if you want to change something out there,
you have to change something in here first. You go to the source.
Exactly. You don't try to repaint the reflection in the mirror. You change what the mirror is reflecting. By shifting your internal state, your consciousness, your beliefs, feelings, assumptions, you're dealing directly with the cause. That's the fast track.
Like someone always feeling unlucky, they keep finding bad luck because that's the inner reality being projected outwards.
Precisely. That belief is actively creating those experiences, which leads perfectly into the next point. Feeling is the secret.
Right, so it's not enough just to think positive thoughts or visualize something vaguely.
Nope. Thinking might be the blueprint, Neville said, but feeling is the energy. It's what gives the imaginal act life, what impresses it onto the subconscious. You have to feel the wish fulfilled.
Feel it as if it's real right now.
Yes, he was very clear. No idea can be impressed on the subconscious until it is felt.
Yeah.
And crucially, but once felt, be it good, bad, or indifferent, it must be expressed.
Wow. So even negative feelings, if strongly felt, get impressed and expressed.
That's the implication. And he also said, what you feel you are always dominates what you feel you would like to be. So the wish has to be felt as a state that is, not one that's missing.
So the work is generating and sustaining that desired feeling, regardless of what's currently happening outside. That feeling creates the external reality.
Exactly. You reverse the usual flow. You don't wait for the outside to change to feel good. You feel good first, and the outside changes to match the feeling.
Okay, that makes sense. Which brings us to the law of assumption. This seems like where the action really happens.
It is. This is the operational principle. You consciously assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled. You decide that your desire is already a fact in your reality.
You accept it as done internally before you see external proof.
Yes. You assume it's true. You live from that assumption mentally and emotionally. Neville said, your prayer must be answered if you assume the feeling that would be yours were you already in possession of your objective.
So the assumption combined with the feeling is the trigger.
It's the key. He said, the moment you accept the wish as an accomplished fact, the subconscious finds means for its realization. And get this, an assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact.
That's powerful. Persisted in, so it's not necessarily a one-time thing.
Persistence is often key. You live mentally from that assumption. It's believing it, then seeing it, not the other way around.
Which is completely counter to how we usually operate.
Totally flips it. And the speed, Neville suggested, is tied to how fully and naturally you embody that assumption now. The less internal conflict, the faster the external shift.
All right, next up, I am. This feels really core, really fundamental.
It absolutely is. For example, I am isn't just saying you exist, it is existence. It's your core awareness, your consciousness, the God power within you, the source of everything.
The creative principle itself.
Yes, he called it the self-definition of the absolute, the foundation on which everything rests. I am is the first cause substance.
So whatever follows I am in our conviction, that's what we are directing that power to create.
Exactly. What you attach to I am with feeling becomes your reality. I am prosperous. I am loved. I am healthy. These aren't just affirmations, they're claims on your true nature, your creative identity.
You're defining yourself as that reality.
Right. Neville said, before man can attempt to transform his world, he must first lay the foundation. I am the Lord. That is, man's awareness, his consciousness of being is God. It puts the power squarely inside you.
No need to look for power outside yourself. It's inherent in your awareness.
Precisely. Which connects to the last foundational piece. Creation is finished.
Okay, this one can sound a bit strange at first. What does that actually mean?
It means every possibility, every potential reality you could ever desire or imagine already exists. It's already created in the infinite potential of consciousness.
So we're not actually creating things from scratch.
According to Neville, no. We're selecting a reality. Think of it like tuning a radio. All the stations are broadcasting simultaneously. You just tune your receiver, your consciousness, the frequency, the state you want to experience.
So the desire, the potential for it is already here.
Yes. All that you could ever desire is already present and only waits to be matched by your beliefs, he said. And also, as soon as you have a thought, it is done. It's only you that needs to convince yourself of that.
Wow. That takes a lot of pressure off, doesn't it? The idea you have to struggle and strain to make something happen.
Totally. It shifts the focus from effortful creation to effortless selection. Your work is purely internal, aligning your consciousness, your feeling, your assumption with the reality you choose from, the infinite possibilities already present. It dissolves resistance.
Okay, those 5 principles. Consciousness is reality, feeling is the secret, law of assumption, I am, and creation is finished. They really paint a different picture of how reality works.
They absolutely do. And understanding them is crucial for making the techniques work effectively and, importantly, quickly.
So let's get into those techniques. How do we put these principles into practice? Starting with living in the end.
Right. Living in the end isn't just occasional visualization. It's about adopting the mindset and feeling state of your wish already being fulfilled right now as your default reality.
Thinking from the end result, not just of it.
Exactly. It's a maintained attitude. Neville said, your assumption to be effective cannot be a single isolated act. It must be a maintained attitude of the wish fulfilled. You make that feeling your natural home base.
So throughout the day, you're kind of checking in. How would I feel if this were already done?
Yes. And then you deliberately step into that feeling. You embody it.
What are the practical steps for that? How do you actually do living in the end?
Okay, first, define your desire clearly. Get specific. Second, construct your end scene. A short, simple scene implying fulfillment is already yours, like a friend congratulating you or you enjoying the benefits. Third, first-person perspective and sensory detail. See it through your own eyes, hear it, touch it, feel it. Fourth, feel the accompanying emotions. Joy, relief, gratitude, peace. Whatever feels authentic to having it. Fifth, practice consistently, especially before sleep and upon waking, but also recalling the feeling during the day. And sixth, maintain the mood. Carry that feeling, that fragrant odor, as Neville called it, with you.
And why is this considered fast? Why does it accelerate things?
Because you're aligning everything, conscious thoughts, subconscious beliefs, emotions, with the desired reality now. You're impressing the subconscious with having, not wanting.
So the subconscious gets the message loud and clear, this is reality now.
Exactly. And then it works out the how, the bridge of incidents, to make the outer match the inner. It collapses the psychological distance. You're basically choosing and inhabiting a reality that, according to creation is finished, already exists.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, SIS state akin to sleep. Neville put a lot of emphasis on this specific state.
He really did. He called it the royal road to the subconscious. That drowsy, relaxed state just before you fall asleep or just as you're waking up.
Why is that state so special?
Because your conscious, analytical mind, the gatekeeper, with all its doubts and logic, is largely offline. It's quiet. As Neville put it, it's for using your imagination without having your logical mind immediately reject the image.
So you bypass the inner critic.
Precisely. He said reality loses its sense of solidity then, making the subconscious super receptive. It's like planting a seed directly into fertile soil without any weeds interfering.
Okay, walk us through the steps for doing SIS effectively.
Sure. First, again, define your fulfilled scene. Short, specific first person implies fulfillment. Then relax your body completely. Systematically, toes to head, let go of all tension. Third, enter the drowsy state, SAT says. Deeply relaxed, almost asleep, but still aware enough to direct your focus. Fourth, enact your scene vividly. Feel it happening now, engage all senses, emphasize the emotion. Fifth, loop the scene repeatedly, gently, effortlessly, like a lullaby, until it feels really real. And finally, the goal is to fall asleep in the scene, immersed in that feeling and action as you drift off.
And the speed factor here comes from?
Direct, unhindered communication with the subconscious. You quiet the doubts, bypass resistance, and plant that seed of fulfilled desire, rich with feeling and sensory detail, right where it needs to go.
The subconscious accepts it as fact and starts working to make it appear externally.
Exactly. The clarity and potency of the impression made when that conscious-subconscious veil is thin is incredibly powerful for rapid manifestation.
Okay, moving on to mental diets and inner conversations. This sounds like ongoing maintenance.
It absolutely is. Neville taught that our inner talk, the conversations we have in our heads all day long, literally creates our life circumstances.
A man's mental conversations attracts his life. That's one of his quotes, right?
Yes. And as long as there is no change in his inner talking, the personal history of the man remains the same. Trying to change the outside without changing the inner chat. Futile, he said.
So a mental diet is consciously controlling that inner dialogue.
Correct. You become the monitor, the curator of your own thoughts.
Yep.
First step, become aware. Just notice your habitual self-talk without judgment. Second, identify negative patterns, doubts, worries, inner arguments, complaining, focusing on, lack anything that contradicts your desire. Third, consciously revise and replace. Catch the negative thought, stop it, and immediately substitute it with an affirmation or inner conversation that assumes your wish is fulfilled.
Like that story of the woman imagining her boss praising her instead of mentally arguing with him.
Exactly. Her inner shift changed his outer behavior. It requires discipline and persistence, like any diet.
And why does this speed things up?
Because it stops you from constantly undermining your own assumptions. It eliminates the contradictory thoughts and feelings that dilute the signal to your subconscious.
You stop sowing seeds of doubt and lack.
Right. You only nurture fulfillment. It's basically living in the end on a moment-by-moment internal level. Creates a pure, unobstructed pathway for manifestation.
Okay, the last big technique, the pruning shears of revision. Reshaping the past. How does that work?
This is fascinating. Revision means mentally going back to an undesirable past event and reimagining it as you wish it had happened.
Rewriting history in your mind.
Exactly. Neville said, revision results in repeal, meaning changing it in imagination neutralizes its negative effects on your present and future.
He really believed you could change the effect of the past.
Absolutely. He said, man must go back in memory, seek for and destroy the causes of evil. This going into the past and replaying a scene, as it ought to have been played the first time, I call revision, and revision results in repeal. He even suggested doing it daily.
Reviewing the day and rewriting the unpleasant bits?
Yes. He'd review his day before sleep, rewrite any scene that wasn't ideal, make it conform to the perfect day, and relive that revised day until it felt real. He believed these revised days, if really lived, will change my tomorrows.
Okay, how do you do it step by step?
First, identify the event you want to change. Could be recent, could be long ago. Second, rewrite the scene in your imagination. Change words, actions, outcomes to your ideal version. Third, enter S-outs if possible for deeper impact. Fourth, relive the revised scene vividly. First person, senses engaged, feeling the positive emotions of the new outcome. Fifth, repeat until it feels real and satisfying. Loop it until it feels like that's what actually happened. Sixth, fall asleep in it, or just conclude when it feels complete and real.
And why does revising the past speed up future manifestation? That seems counterintuitive.
Because the past, as it lives in your consciousness, your memories and feelings about them, creates your present reality. Unwanted present circumstances often have roots in unrevised negative past experiences.
So revision cuts those roots.
Exactly. It neutralizes negative imprints, limiting beliefs, subconscious blocks stemming from the past. You're changing the cause, the memory, feeling, and consciousness. So the effect, present-future reality, has to change too.
It clears the path for current desires by removing those old anchors.
Precisely. Revising a past failure can literally change your belief in your ability to succeed now. Neville told stories of people healing physical issues by revising the moment of injury. It's powerful stuff.
Okay, so we have these powerful techniques, but let's be real. People still face challenges. Doubt, fear, things not happening instantly.
Oh, absolutely. Neville acknowledged these are common hurdles. Doubt is probably the biggest saboteur.
So how did he suggest dealing with doubt?
His main advice was persistent redirection. Keep bringing your attention back to the assumption of the wish fulfilled. No matter what your senses are telling you, ignore the problem.
Focus entirely on the desired outcome.
Yes. Take your attention away from your problem. Concentrate your attention entirely upon the thing desired. He suggested mental resets. When doubt hits, this isn't working, immediately counter it. Everything is working perfectly. My world is transforming now.
Using affirmations, maybe?
Definitely. Especially before sleep, like a lullaby. It is done. It's already mine. Or when challenges pop up, this situation will resolve itself perfectly. Gratitude in advance is also huge. Thank you for the desire, which is now mine.
What about shifting out of a really negative feeling, like fear or despair?
It's about dying to the old state, as he put it. Acknowledge the feeling without struggling against it, then consciously shift attention.
How? What helps make that shift?
Deep relaxation can dissolve resistance. Focusing on I am centers you in your creative power. Revision can address the past event fueling the feeling. Even simple deep breathing, consciously inhaling power and exhaling doubt. It's about gentle, consistent redirection, not a mental war.
Okay, what about delays? When things just seem to be taking forever or maybe even going backwards?
The bridge of incidents. Neville explained that desires often manifest through a sequence of seemingly natural, even coincidental events.
A chain reaction leading to the goal.
Exactly. And sometimes the early links in that chain might look nothing like the end result, might even seem like setbacks.
Well, so what do you do then?
Trust the process. Remain faithful to your imaginal act. Crucially, don't try to dictate the how or the specific steps.
Don't micromanage the universe.
Pretty much. Neville said, once you have planted this seed, do not uproot it by being anxious about how it will be accomplished. Each seed has its own appointed time. The subconscious has a wisdom we don't. It'll arrange things. Trying to control it consciously often just interferes and slows it down.
That requires real faith. Now, what if you're just struggling to feel the wish fulfilled? You know intellectually you should, but the feeling isn't there.
Yeah, that's the common one. Neville knew prayer is assuming the feeling, but he also warned prayer must be without effort. In attempting to fix an attitude denied by the senses, effort is fatal.
So forcing the feeling doesn't work. Yeah. What does?
He suggested several things. Get into a passive, receptive state, first meditation, reverie, just before sleep, Sometimes imagine the picture first, then add the feeling.
Focus on the image to evoke the emotion.
Right. Or just focus on I am, repeating it quietly with feeling, which connects you to your power source. Deep relaxation is key. That peaceful, relaxed feeling is actually very close to the feeling of fulfillment.
Interesting. What else?
Practice gratitude. Even if you can't feel good about the desire yet, feel grateful for something. Use the I remember when technique. Imagine looking back from the fulfilled state, and always focus on the solution, not the problem. Remove attention from the problem, become indifferent to it, and feel yourself being the solution.
The common thread seems to be reducing effort and resistance, quieting the analytical mind.
Exactly. Let the feeling arise more naturally rather than trying to strong-arm it.
Okay, beyond the specific techniques, it sounds like the intensity and conviction you bring are also really important for speed.
Hugely important. Making the imaginal act intensely real, sensorily vivid, that's an accelerator.
You have to really be there in your imagination.
Yes. Neville said, you must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled until your assumption has all the sensory vividness of reality. And the great secret is a controlled imagination and a well-sustained attention firmly and repeatedly focused on the feeling until it fills the mind.
He talked about essentials in the power of awareness, right? Desire, immobility, and experiencing it from the end.
That's right. Intense desire, physical relaxation like essay tests, and truly thinking from the end state.
So how do we cultivate that intensity?
He said, narrow your focus. Attention is powerful when concentrated. Participate, don't just watch the scene, feel yourself doing it. Engage all senses in imagination, sight, sound, touch, smell, taste. Make the inner experience more real than the outer world at that moment.
So when you open your eyes, the real world seems pale in comparison.
That's the goal. Vague imagining leads to vague results. Intense, vivid imagining commands the subconscious.
And tied to that is unshakable conviction, believing it fully.
Absolutely critical. The inner world has to become more real, more authoritative than outer circumstances. Your assumption, held regardless of appearances, must reshape the world. It's law, Neville insisted.
So living as if isn't pretending, it's genuinely being that person internally.
Yes. Your inner mental activities align completely with already having the desire. Often the speed isn't about the technique itself, but how much conviction you have, how naturally you occupy that desired state inside.
When the inner having is solid, the outer lacking has to dissolve. The delay just shortens.
Exactly. The 3D world is just catching up to your established inner reality.
Okay, one last bonus technique, and it's a big one. Everyone. Is you pushed out? EIYPO.
Ah, yes, EIYPO. Profound, sometimes challenging, but incredibly powerful.
What's the core idea?
That everyone and everything in your world is reflecting you. Their behavior, how they treat you, it's all a mirror of your own consciousness, your thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and especially your assumptions about them and about yourself in relation to them.
So if someone's acting undesirably, it's because on some level, I expect or assume they might.
According to EIYPO, yes. You hold a subconscious conception of them that allows for or even invites that behavior.
Wow. Okay, so how do you use that to change things, especially relationships?
You don't try to change them externally. That's futile, like arguing with the mirror. You change your inner conception of them.
How? What are the steps?
First, accept them as they are right now, just for a moment, to release resistance. Second, detach from the old story, the history of negative interactions. Third, create a new inner conception. Imagine them as you want them to be behaving kindly, harmoniously, whatever you desire. See them that way in your mind's eye. Fourth, persist in this new assumption, regardless of current appearances.
Like the woman changing her assumption about her critical employer again.
Exactly. Or stories you hear of people transforming difficult relationships by consistently intending and imagining the other person being loving or appreciative.
And why does EIYPO lead to faster results in interactions?
Because it bypasses all the ineffective external trying. Trying to change someone externally implies they have independent causation, which EIYPO says is an illusion.
You're going straight to the only actual cause. Your own consciousness and assumptions about them.
Right. You change the inner pattern, the inner object being projected. The reflection their behavior must eventually change to match your dominant new assumption about them. It often happens quickly because you've addressed the true root within yourself.
Neville's whole framework is just so empowering, isn't it? It puts the control entirely back in our hands.
It really does. The core message is crystal clear. You are the operant. Power. Your imagination is God in action, consciousness is the only reality, and assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled is the mechanism.
Assume the feeling. and continue feeling
Yeah.
until that which you feel objectifies itself. That quote sums it up nicely.
It really does. And consistency in applying these tools. Living in the end, SATs, mental diets, revision, EIYPO. That's the key to mastery.
Each one helps you get into and stay in that state of consciousness where the desire is already a fact.
Exactly. So the invitation here really is for you listening to test it, as Neville would say.
Take him at his word and experiment.
Absolutely. Dare to believe in the reality of your assumption. Persist in it. Watch your world conform. Pick a technique, maybe two, that resonate. Apply them diligently, with feeling, with persistence, and just observe. Observe the inner shifts. Observe the outer shifts.
Because ultimately, the power to create the life you want is already within you.
It absolutely is. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the incredible teachings of Neville Goddard.
It's been fascinating.
We really hope you go forth now and consciously, deliberately create the life you truly desire.